The air was thick with the scent of sweat, sawdust, and anticipation. The track lights burned bright, too bright, and their glow reflected off the polished metal starting boxes lined in a row. The crowd buzzed, a chaotic mix of cheers, murmurs, and music spilling from the loudspeakers overhead. But Dash heard none of it the way humans did. For him, it was a blur of sound, a wall of pressure pulsing like a storm just beyond his ears. He was dog number 6 tonight, his muzzle snug around his snout, his racing silks a faded blue marked. With a white 6, he stood tall and thin, all wiry limbs and taut muscles, his coat a sleek brindle like a painting of earth and fire. His ribs showed, as they always did, though not from hunger. Racing dogs were kept lean by design. Behind him, the handler gave a gentle tug on his leash, guiding him toward the gate. Dash's claws clicked rhythmically on the concrete. He had done this walk 100 times before, but tonight it felt different. His legs were stiff. His mind wandered. He didn't feel the fire in his veins that used to rise at the scent of the lure. Still, his body moved on instinct, trained, conditioned, molded. As he approached the starting gate, the handlers lined the dogs up one by one. Dash glanced to his left and saw dog number 5, a wiry female named Crinkle, tail wagging, eyes wide. She was younger, eager. Dash looked forward again. The mechanical rabbit began its slow grind along the outer rail, the high-pitched whir snapping. All the dogs to attention. Here comes the bunny, the announcer shouted. The crowd's roar spiked. The gate snapped open. Dash leapt forward, his paws pounding the sand, claws digging, muscles firing in perfect sequence. The pack exploded beside him, a flurry of fur and legs jostling for position. Crinkle surged. Ahead, number 3 stumbled. Dash aimed for the curve, years of experience telling him where to angle, when to ease up, when to push, but something inside him hesitated. Not fear, not pain, just stillness. A silence he didn't understand. He ran, because that's what he was meant to do. But the thrill, the lightning in his chest, was gone. By the time they crossed the finish line, Dash was in 4th place. In the past, that might have meant frustration, a longer time before being called up again. But this time, when he slowed to a trot and was corralled by his handler, he heard a word he hadn't heard before, not from the humans around him. Retired. The word sounded final, heavy. Dash didn't know what it meant, but he felt it deep in his bones. Something had ended. Back in the kennels, Dash lay curled on a thin pad of cloth in a wire crate. These sounds of barking echoed through the long corridor. The humans moved with practiced efficiency, feeding, cleaning, talking among themselves. Dash didn't mind the routine. It was what he knew. But that night, he kept one eye open. He didn't doze like the others. He watched the door. The next morning came early. It always did. The overhead lights blinked to life with a buzz, and the handlers' voices filtered in through the din. Crinkle yawned loudly from the crate next to him, her pink tongue curling. "You ran fine," she barked to him, her tone casual, friendly. "I didn't feel it," Dash said quietly. "What didn't you feel?" "The race, the wind, the pull." "Of the track." Crinkle tilted her head, ears flicking forward. "You're tired." Dash didn't answer. He wasn't sure that was it. By midday, Dash's crate door opened, but not for his usual walk or exercise. A new human stood outside, older, with gentle hands and a soft-smelling shirt. A woman. She knelt and looked into his eyes without speaking. Not measuring muscle, not checking his teeth. She just looked. The handler beside her said something. Dash caught his name. Dash. And another phrase, "He's one of the calm ones." The woman nodded. "He has the eyes." A short while later, Dash was led out of the kennel. His leash passed to the woman. She gave him a soft smile. "Well, sweetheart," she said gently, "your racing days are over." The car was different from the track vans. It didn't smell like other dogs or metal or sweat. It smelled like plants and cloth and something sweet. Dash hesitated at first, but the woman waited patiently. He clambered in, legs unsure on the soft seat. His muzzle was off now. His mouth hung open slightly, not a pant. Just the natural way he held it when unsure. She closed the door. The engine started. The world outside the window began to move. As they drove, Dash rested his head against the cool glass. Trees blurred by, then fields, then buildings. The landscape of his world, once defined by ovals of sand and chain link. Fences began to stretch in unfamiliar directions. He glanced at the woman. She didn't say much, just drove, one hand occasionally reaching out to rest lightly on his back. It was the first time in his life that a human had touched him without asking anything in return. When they arrived at the house, Dash stepped cautiously out of the car. The yard was quiet. A small garden grew along the side of the path. A wind chime tinkled in the breeze. The woman unlocked the door and held it open. "Come in, Dash." He walked inside. The floors were smooth wood, cool under his paws. He sniffed. Fabric, wood. Polished distant whiffs of something meaty from a nearby room. A strange little object sat in the middle of the living room, soft-looking, wide, and squat. The couch. The woman set down his leash. "This is home now." He stood in place, confused. No kennel, no crate, no commands. Just silence and the faint hum of a refrigerator. She walked to the couch and sat, patting the cushion beside her. So don't have to come up. Not yet." Dash looked at her, then at the couch, then at the wide, sunlit windows. Something stirred in him, a question he didn't yet have words for. He lay down on the floor instead, curling tightly beside the couch. As close as he dared, the woman smiled. "We'll take it slow." He closed his eyes and, for the first time in his life, slept without the scent of sand in his nose or the rattle of a crate around him. Before Dash came to live with Ellie, there was the shelter, a halfway world between the roaring track and the silent home. It wasn't cruel, not like some places. The humans were kind, or tried to be. The food came on time. The crates were large, lined with blankets. Volunteers walked the dogs every morning and evening. Some even knelt down and whispered soft words into their ears. But it was not home. It was not quiet. It was a place of waiting. Dash arrived in the back of a white van with the logo of the rescue stenciled in green. Forever Fast Friends. Greyhound Adoption and Rescue. The name meant nothing. To him, only the smells did. Other dogs, cleaning chemicals. The faint tang of fear and hope and confusion, all soaked into the metal floor and canvas walls. The woman from the track, the one with the soft eyes, had passed him off to another set of hands. Younger voices now, quick movements, a clipboard, a leash switch. The back gate opened and Dash was led out into bright sunlight. A long-furred mix in the next kennel barked wildly at his arrival. A pair of small terriers in a pen nearby yapped and circled each other like bees. Dash stood still. He had learned long ago that stillness kept the trouble away. "Hey, handsome," said a voice. The young woman at the end of the leash crouched beside him. She had a red braid and smelled like apples and wool. "You're a tall boy, huh? Got those long dancer legs." Dash didn't react. He was processing. New scents, new surfaces, new tone in her voice. It wasn't commanding. It wasn't urgent. It wasn't yelling. She clipped him to a gate and unlatched the chain-link door. He was guided inside to a roomy pen with a soft, slightly lumpy dog bed, 2 bowls, and a stuffed toy shaped like a frog. The door clanged shut behind him, but it wasn't cold or cruel. It was simply final. The red-haired girl knelt outside the gate and smiled. "Welcome to the shelter, buddy. You're safe now." Dash turned in a slow circle, sniffed the corners, then curled up on the bed, tight and small, the way he always did when he wasn't sure if the peace would last. Days passed slowly. The routines were different from the track. No whistles, no bark collars, no muzzle fittings. Every morning, the red-haired girl, her name was Kelsey, came down the row, leash in hand, talking to the dogs like they were old friends. Dash grew used to her voice. "Morning, Dash. Wanna stretch those mile-long legs?" He would let her leash him, follow her outside to the long fenced-in play yard. Some dogs bounded out eagerly, chasing tennis balls or play wrestling in the corners. Dash, by contrast, stayed close to the fence. He walked in slow, deliberate arcs, like he was still on the track, waiting for the gate to open. He didn't chase toys. He didn't bark. He simply existed. Kelsey didn't push him. "You're a soft soul," she told him one morning, kneeling to scratch behind his ears. He blinked at her. "Don't worry, the right person will see that." Other dogs came and went. A big black male named Diesel was adopted after only 4 days. He'd barked constantly and bounced on his hind legs whenever anyone came near. A family with 3 kids had fallen in love with his energy. "Some people like the flashy ones," Kelsey said with a shrug, watching the family drive away. Dash didn't mind the quiet that followed Diesel's departure. One morning, a new scent arrived, a tiny, trembling whippet mix with nervous eyes and a hunched posture. The little dog's name was Mimi. She was placed in the pen next to Dash's. On the second night, Mimi whined through the bars. Dash stirred, but didn't move. Mimi whined again, a soft, uncertain sound. She didn't want to be alone. Without making a sound, Dash stood, walked to the side of his pen nearest hers, and lay down facing her. He pressed his flank against the mesh. Mimi stopped. Whining. The volunteers noticed. Kelsey gave him extra ear rubs the next morning. "You're a good boy, Dash," she whispered. He didn't understand the words. Not really, but the warmth in her voice wrapped around him like a blanket. Still, Dash didn't expect anything to change. He had learned that things didn't usually get better. They just changed direction. So when a new human arrived one Saturday afternoon, a woman with gentle hands and a quiet step, Dash didn't react at first. She didn't smell like the others. No perfume. Just laundry and books. Her clothes were soft, loose. Her eyes were calm, and when she walked past barking dogs, she didn't flinch or turn away. She looked at all of them with something like sorrow. She stopped in front of Dash's. "Pen, who's this one?" she asked. Kelsey lit up. "That's Dash, retired just last month. Not a barker, kind of a quiet guy." "He's beautiful," the woman said. Dash didn't move. He looked at her the way he looked at everything. Watchful, careful. He was never the first to trust. She crouched, resting her hands on her knees. Dash slowly rose and stepped toward the gate. He sniffed her hand through the bars. "You have the eyes," she murmured. Kelsey blinked. "Sorry?" The woman shook her head slightly. "Nothing. I've just seen those eyes before." They spoke for a little while longer. Papers were signed. Kelsey fetched Dash's leash and opened the pen. The woman knelt and clipped it on herself. "You ready, sweet boy?" Dash didn't know what she was asking, but there was no fear in her voice. Only something else. Something steady and soft. He followed her out of the kennel without looking back. The drive was quiet. She didn't speak often, and when she did, it was like a lullaby meant for no one. "We'll go slow. I have time." Or, "You don't have to be anything you're not." She glanced at him once. "Your name's Dash? That fits. But if you want something else, we'll figure it out together." He didn't understand, but the tone was enough. He rested his chin on the edge of the seat and watched the trees blur by. That night, Dash slept in a room with 4 walls and no chain link. The crate was gone. The floor was carpeted. A blanket had been spread out for him near the couch, and a bowl of water sat nearby, fresh and cool. He turned in a circle and lay down slowly. The woman, Ellie, sat on the couch above him with a book. In her lap, the TV off, no radio, no phone buzzing, just silence. After a long time, she looked down at him. "Thank you for trusting me, Dash." His ears flicked toward her voice. He didn't wag. He didn't move, but his eyes closed slowly, and his breath came deep and steady. The sun slipped low in the sky, casting long golden streaks through the windows. Dash lay on the soft carpet, a place that felt new and strange beneath his paws. It was quieter than the shelter, softer than the track, and somehow safer, though he wasn't sure why. Ellie sat nearby, reading from a worn book. She spoke sometimes, her voice calm and steady. She didn't rush him, didn't expect him to leap onto the couch or run through the yard. She just sat and waited. When she stood, Dash lifted his head. She smiled gently. "Want to go outside?" The word was strange, but the tone was warm. She fetched a collar and a leash, soft leather that smelled faintly of vanilla and earth. Dash's ears twitched. The word collar meant pain and restriction from before, but this collar was light. It wasn't a muzzle. It wasn't a cage. Knelt slowly, holding out her hand to him. "I'm going to put this on, Dash. It's so you can come with me." Dash hesitated. He sniffed the collar. The leather was soft, the buckle cold but smooth. Ellie's hand was gentle, and she didn't pull or force. With a soft click, the collar fastened around his neck. He blinked and lowered his head, trying to ignore the strange new weight. The leash came next. Ellie held one end, the other clipped to the collar. "We'll take it slow," she promised. The door opened and fresh air washed over Dash's nose. The scent of grass, dirt, flowers, and something alive in the earth. It was the outside world, one he had never known beyond the track's fenced-in yards. His paws touched the grass cautiously. It was softer, cooler than the sand of the track. He didn't know if he liked it yet. Ellie took a step forward and he followed. Their walk was tentative, halting. Dash was slow to move, hesitant to trust the leash pulling lightly at his neck. First, he froze. The sounds of birds, the rustle of leaves, the distant hum of cars were strange and loud. Ellie stopped and waited, not urging him, not pulling. She crouched beside him and stroked his head. Good boy, Dash. This is your world. Now. The neighborhood was quiet, dotted with tall trees and houses with white fences and flower beds. Children played in yards, their laughter high and bright. Dash's ears flicked, unsure. A small dog with curly fur bounded up to the fence, barking excitedly. Dash flinched but stayed still. Ellie smiled. That's Benny. He's friendly. A woman stepped outside, waving. Dash felt the leash tighten and loosen in Ellie's hand. Do you want to say hello? She asked. Dash didn't, not yet. Over the next few days, Ellie made a routine. A gentle, slow routine of short walks, soft words, and long moments of stillness on the couch. At first, Dash refused to climb up. The couch was a strange mountain, soft and squishy, unlike the hard ground he'd known. Ellie sat on the floor beside it, coaxing gently. Up here, she said, soft, safe. One afternoon, after weeks of silence, Dash tentatively lifted. His front paws onto the cushion. His claws sank into the plush fabric. The softness surprised him. His legs wobbled, but he pulled himself up. Ellie beamed. That's it, buddy. Dash settled awkwardly, his body unsure. He felt warmth from her nearby. No commands. No rush. He sighed. A slow, deep breath. At night, Dash began to look for Ellie's touch. When she sat on the couch, he pressed his head against her knee. She stroked behind his ears. Careful, patient. One evening, a low rumble shook the windows. A storm rolled in, loud thunder echoing through the house. Dash stiffened, his body tense. The memories of harsh noises and flashing lights from the track and shelter pressed on him. Ellie noticed immediately. She wrapped a soft blanket around him, speaking quietly. It's okay, Dash. I'm here. He trembled but didn't pull away. Storm passed, and the silence that followed was gentle, like a balm. Dash learned to trust the slow rhythm of days with Ellie. His body relaxed, his eyes softened. One afternoon, as they sat on the couch, Ellie whispered, "You're home now." Dash rested his head on her lap and closed his eyes. For the first time in his life, he wasn't running to a finish line or waiting in a cage. He was exactly where he belonged. Dash was discovering a strange new kingdom, the kingdom of the couch. Unlike the track, where every step was measured and every muscle taut, or the shelter, where space was limited and silence was broken by barking, here was a soft throne that stretched wide and deep. It was a throne that promised warmth, comfort, and no urgent demands. At first, the couch was a mystery, a large, squishy mountain too high to conquer, covered in cushions that smelled of Ellie and the faint trace of lavender. Dash would sit or lie beside it, glancing up as if asking permission. Ellie never hesitated to offer it. One crisp morning, with sunlight pouring through the windows and catching dust motes in the air, Ellie sat cross-legged on the couch reading, aloud from a book about wild dogs. Her voice was calm and soothing. Dash lay nearby, watching the flicker of light dance on the pages. Ellie glanced down and smiled. "Wanna come up, Dash?" He hesitated. His legs felt unfamiliar with the effort, but the quiet invitation made the difference. Slowly, he stretched, his long front legs planting paws on the cushion. The surface gave slightly, a gentle sinking that surprised him. He shifted weight cautiously. Ellie held out a hand. Dash leaned in, placing his head on her lap. She stroked his brindle fur softly, the motion steady and light. "Welcome to the Couch Kingdom," she whispered. Days turned to weeks. The couch became Dash's favorite place. He would nap there in the afternoons, stretch languidly with the sun warming his coat. The cushions molded to his body like clouds, inviting and soft. Ellie often joined him, and sometimes they would share quiet moments, her hand tracing slow circles behind his ears, his eyes half closed in contentment. The world beyond the windows buzzed with sounds of cars, birds, and neighbors, but inside there was only peace. One afternoon, Ellie's phone buzzed, breaking the silence. Dash twitched his ears but didn't move. Ellie looked at the screen, then back to Dash. "No worries, buddy. Just work stuff." She set the phone aside, patting his flank. Dash's chest rose and fell steadily. The nights were gentle too. No longer did thunderstorms send him trembling under tables or behind chairs. Ellie had crafted a special spot beside, the couch with a soft blanket and a low nightlight that cast a warm glow. One evening, as rain pattered softly against the window, Dash lay curled, feeling safe and secure. Ellie sat nearby, reading softly. "You're brave, Dash," she said. "Brave enough to rest." Dash sighed, his body loosening from the tension of years past. The other neighbors began to notice the change too. The quiet dog who once ignored calls now responded to Ellie's gentle voice. The dog who shied away from strangers wagged his tail. When children waved from across the street, Dash's world was expanding, not with speed, but with softness. One day, while Ellie tended the garden, Dash followed at a slow trot, the leash loose in her hand. He paused to sniff a patch of wildflowers, ears alert but relaxed. Ellie knelt beside him. "Look at you, exploring." Dash wagged his tail softly. The couch kingdom was only the beginning. The days had grown soft and steady like a gentle river flowing through Dash's new life. The pounding thud of racing feet and the harsh clang of metal gates felt like distant echoes from a life that belonged to someone else. Someone who ran for speed, for finish lines, for fleeting moments of victory. Now Dash ran only when he wanted to, chasing a ball tossed gently in the yard or darting after a squirrel with clumsy joy. But most of the time, he moved slowly, savoring each step, each breath. Ellie had become more than just a caretaker. She was a quiet presence, steady as the sun and patient as the moon, teaching Dash the art of gentle affection and slow companionship. 1. Morning, Ellie sat on the porch with a cup of tea, the warmth of the rising sun bathing the garden in soft light. Dash lay stretched at her feet, tail wagging lazily. Ellie smiled down at him. "You're not a racer anymore, Dash. You're just my best friend." Dash lifted his head and gave a low, happy woof. He didn't understand all the words, but he knew the meaning. This was home. The transformation wasn't just in the routines or the spaces. It was in Dash himself. The way his eyes softened with trust, the way his body relaxed into the cushions and the grass, the way he sought out Ellie's hand for gentle scratches behind the ears. He had learned that a life could be about more than running fast and winning races. It could be about warmth, about rest, about love. Ellie noticed the little things. The way Dash would nudge her hand when he wanted attention. The way he slept sprawled out instead of curled into a tight ball. The way he sometimes let out a soft sigh of contentment, a sound that had never come from him before. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ellie settled beside Dash on the couch. The room was quiet except for the hum of a distant car and the ticking of a clock. She reached out and ran her fingers through his fur. "You're home now, Dash," she said softly. Dash rested his head on her lap, his eyes half closed. He was finally where he belonged. In the weeks that followed, Ellie and Dash settled into their rhythm. Walks became adventures of discovery, with Dash sniffing every new scent and exploring every patch of grass. The neighborhood kids learned his name, and he learned to wag his tail at their greetings. But the true joy was in the quiet moments. The couch that had become his throne, the soft blankets, the gentle pats, and the slow, patient love. One crisp autumn day, Ellie took Dash to the nearby park. The trees were ablaze with orange and gold. The air was cool and fresh. Dash trotted beside her, tail high, tongue lolling happily. They stopped at a bench overlooking the pond. Ellie pulled out a small treat and held it out. Dash took it carefully. Eyes shining, she smiled. "You're not just a retired racer anymore, Dash. You're a happy dog." He barked softly, a sound full of joy and belonging. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of pink and purple, Dash and Ellie walked home together. No race to win, no cages to fear, only the steady comfort of a home built on trust, patience, and gentle affection. Dash